The church was packed that morning, a sanctuary of a quiet and very public piety. At the front of the grand vaulted room, Father Gregory, in his immaculate ivory-colored robes, moved slowly down the center aisle, a serene beatific smile stretched across his handsome and very trusted face. To his devoted congregation, he was the living, breathing embodiment of purity and of grace, a man who had dedicated his entire and very selfless life to the humble service of God. But Amara, small forgotten girl, standing barefoot at the very back of the church, she saw something else entirely. Her dress was tattered and dirty. Her hair was matted, and her lips were cracked from a thirst she couldn't remember quenching. But her eyes burned with a strange and very powerful knowledge. She was about to confront the holy man, to accuse him, to unearth a secret he had kept buried for years. And what she would reveal would not only shatter the sacred silence of this church, but would shake the very foundations of the entire town. Before we begin this incredible story, please let us know in the comments below where you're watching from today, and if this story moves you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The last time she had come to this beautiful and very holy church, she had been desperate. "Please, Father," she had whispered, her own small voice a raw and very broken sound as she had clutched at the expensive silken fabric of his robe. "My mother, ... she is so sick. We need food, please, just a little bread or some medicine." Father Gregory had looked down at her then, at her small, dirty face, at her large, pleading eyes. And his own face had been a mask of a cold and very final disgust. "This house," he had said, his voice a quiet and very dismissive sound, as he had so easily pried her small, desperate hands off of his robe, "is for the pure and for the holy, not for beggars." And then he had turned, and he had walked away without a single backward glance, leaving Amara and her dying mother alone in the cold, driving rain. Her mother had died 2 nights later. Now, as she watched Father Gregory greet his flock, a strange and very new and very terrifying thing began to happen. The very air around him, the air that everyone else in that room saw as being so full of a holy, golden light, seemed to her to grow heavier, darker. Amara blinked and rubbed her tired, gritty eyes, but the shadows didn't go away. They clung to his shoulders, to his robes, like a shroud of writhing, silent snakes. She didn't know how she could see it. She just ... did. And then, before she could stop herself, before her own very rational and very frightened mind could intervene, she took a single, small, and very brave step into the center aisle. She raised her hand. Gasps of a pure, unadulterated shock rippled through the congregation. Heads, which had been so piously bowed in prayer, now turned their expressions, a mixture of a profound confusion and a dawning and very real outrage. Mothers, with a sudden instinctual fear, pulled their own clean, well-dressed children closer to them. Father Gregory stopped mid-step, his serene, practiced smile faltering. "Who said that?" he demanded, his own voice a little too sharp as he scanned the crowd. The priest's eyes, which had been sweeping across the familiar, adoring faces of his flock, now finally locked on the small, ragged, and very out of place little girl who was standing, alone and unwavering, in the center of the aisle. Her small, dirty finger was pointed directly at him. The entire cavernous church fell into a dead and very profound silence. For a long, stunned moment, Father Gregory just looked at her, and then he chuckled, a low, forced, and very unconvincing sound that didn't quite reach his eyes, but Amara didn't move. A low, ugly murmur began to spread through the pews. "What is she talking about? Did you hear what she said?" Darkness. Father Gregory's jaw tightened. Father Gregory's hands, which had been held in a posture of a patient, paternal grace, now began to tremble. He reached for her, a sudden, sharp, and very desperate movement. But Amara, with a speed and an agility that was almost supernatural, stepped back, out of his reach. The congregation stirred. A new and very real sense of a dawning and very personal fear now rippling through the pews. "Father, A man called out from the back, his own voice now full of a new and very real doubt. "What is she saying? Is this true?" another voice demanded. "No," he whispered, the word a ragged, desperate sound, more to himself than to the silent, watching crowd. No one could possibly know about that. But Amara had heard him. The congregation, which had been murmuring in a confused, uncertain state just moments before, now erupted into a chaos of a dawning and very real horror. "What's in the basement, Father? What have you done? Is it true?" Father Gregory stumbled back as several of the parishioners began to rise from their seats, their own faces now a mask of a new, very ugly accusation. The priest's eyes, which had been so full of a false holy light just moments before, now darted around the room, wild and terrified, like a cornered and very guilty animal. Sweat dripped down his temple. "How?" he stammered, his gaze now fixed on the small, impossible girl who stood before him like a judge, a jury, and an executioner, all in one. "How do you know?" Amara's lips curled into a faint, sad, and very haunting smile. "I didn't know," she said. "Softly, but he told me." She pointed a small, steady, and very powerful finger upward. Father Gregory sank to his knees, a great shuddering, and very final sob escaping his lips, his body trembling with the weight of his own, now very public. "Sins! No," he cried, his voice a broken, pathetic wail. "No, no, this isn't real." But Amara only stared down at him, her own eyes now seeming to glow with a strange, otherworldly intensity. And with that, the small, mysterious girl turned and walked, with a slow, deliberate, very regal grace, toward the altar, leaving the entire stunned and very silent church in her wake. And behind her, the priest's own very real and very broken sobs began to echo through the now hallowed, very haunted pews. The priest's sobs filled the vast silent church like an ominous and very broken hymn. The once proud man now knelt, trembling in his immaculate white robes, his face pale and damp with the cold, greasy sweat of his own, very public fear. Father Gregory shook his head violently, his hands clutching at the expensive silken fabric of his own robe. "No," he whispered, the words a ragged, desperate sound. "You can't know. You weren't there. No one was there." The crowd, which had been so still, so silent, now shifted uneasily. "Father," an elderly woman called from the pews, her own voice, now trembling with a new and very real fear. "What is she talking about? What is in the basement?" "Answer her." Another voice, a man's voice, a voice that was now full of a rising and very dangerous anger, yelled from the back. "Is it true?" Father Gregory's breathing grew ragged, his lips trembling as he struggled to form the words. A collective, horrified gasp swept through the room. Finally, the priest, a man who had built his entire life on a foundation of lies and secrets, broke. "Found them on the streets," he cried out, the words now a torrent of a long overdue and very painful confession. "Years and years ago, we were children, orphans, with nowhere else to go. They begged for food right outside this very church, and I." His own voice cracked with the weight of his own very monstrous hypocrisy. "I took them in. I gave them shelter in the basement because I couldn't let the others, the elders, the patrons of this church, see them. They wouldn't approve. They said that it would bring shame to the house of God. So I hid them." People murmured, glancing at one another in a new and very real confusion. "You hid them?" the man asked. "In the basement?" Father Gregory nodded frantically, his own face now a mask of a desperate and very pathetic self-pity. "They had no parents," he cried. "They had no future. I thought I was saving them. I fed them scraps from the rectory kitchen. I gave them old worn-out blankets, but there were just too many of them, and I—" His face crumpled in a final and very ugly anguish. "I couldn't care for them all. One of them, ... some of them got sick, and some of them, ... them didn't make it." The congregation erupted into shouts of a pure, unadulterated, and very righteous outrage. "You let children die? Why didn't you tell anyone? You are supposed to be a man of God? The priest shook his head violently. No, I wanted to help. I was just ... I was just afraid. Afraid they would take my position away from me. Afraid that they would shut down the church. Tears, hot and real, now streamed down Amara's own small, dusty cheeks. Though her own expression remained as hard and as unforgiving as stone. Silence. Even the air seemed to stop moving as Father Gregory crumbled completely. Just then, the massive oak doors of the church burst open. We received an anonymous tip, one of the officers said, his own voice a grave and very final sound, about a series of missing and unaccounted-for children, all of them linked to this church. Where, he finished, his own eyes now locking on to the broken, weeping man on the floor, is the basement? Father Gregory sobbed harder. I'll take you there, he wailed. I'll show you everything. The officers nodded and led him away as murmurs filled the room. Mara turned to face the congregation, her small chest rising and falling, as though she just carried the weight of 1,000 lifetimes. She wasn't lying, the elderly woman whispered in awe. That child, she's a messenger, someone else murmured. As the priest was escorted out, he turned to look back at Amara one last time. How did you know? He asked, his voice trembling. Weeks. Later, the church basement became a memorial. Flowers and candles lined the steps, names of the lost children etched into stone. The town never forgot the little girl who walked barefoot into a house of God and exposed the shadows hiding in its walls. In Amara, she vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared, leaving only whispers in her wake. Some said she was an angel, others believed she was a prophet, but no one could deny that she changed everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Till next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.